On the 17th of July 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 was shot down by a bug service-to-air missile. Caucus of under investigation. It was shot down near Gasperis, Ukraine. It had 283 passengers and 15 crew. Altogether, 298 people died, and there was no survivors. In this special Newsbeat special, we'll give you all of the updates, all the people who died, and a special report. This is Extra Radio's Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. Now we're going to go for the timelines before the crash, before we go on to a special edition of it. So, on the 3rd of March 2014, a Caribbean crew of Malaysia Airlines stopped after flying Ukraine airspace. Because of security concerns, Afro, the Singapore Airlines and others will continue overflying, that is, on the eastern Ukraine until after MH17 was shot down. Simple really, wasn't it? In April 2014, in the International Civil Advance Organization World Governments, there was the possibility of advance of serious risks to the safety of international civil flights over Ukraine. The US financial FAA issued restrictions on flying over Colombia or Samia, just south of MH17's route, and advised airlines and flyers after the rest of Ukraine to exercise extreme caution due to the continued of the availability. On the 14th of June 2014, a Ukraine Air Force, the Laswell's LL-76 aircraft was shot down on the approach of the Laswell's International Airport. All 49 people died on board. On the 29th of June 2014, NTV reported that separators had access to the barrack after taking control of the Ukraine Air Defense Base A-1402, possibility to further location of the 158th anti-aircraft rocket restrictions of the 516 ZIP, that's the Ukraine Air Force. On the same day, the Dutch People Republic claimed privation of such of the systems in a since deleted tweet. On the 1st of July 2014, Ukraine officials advised pilots to not fly below 26,000 feet over eastern Ukraine. On the 13th of July 2014, strictly conservative President that barrack launchers taken over the Ukraine army was going to fix soon as specials from Russia. On the 14th of July 2014, day after an uncommented phone call or unconfirmed phone call took place between the Irish Chief of Staff, Deputy Prime Minister of Defence of Self-Destruction and the Ukraine's Republic officer, and an officer for main conspiracy disruption of the Russian Federation, where officer said, "Now we have we shall bring them planes down." On the 14th of July 2014, also the Ukraine military and 26 transport aircraft flying at 21,000 feet were shot down, confirmed to be shot using barrack. The US officials later said evidence suggested the aircraft had been fired from the inside of the Russian territory. Also on the 14th of July 2014, the Ukraine officials advised pilots not to fly below 32,000 feet now, lands 9,800 meters over eastern Ukraine. On the 15th of July 2014, following his visit to Ukraine, Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs officer warned about the dangers posed by the continued Russian military support for pro-Russian suspectancies, especially ground-to-air missiles. These are mobile rockets whose Saudi government by international rules, and they are forbidden from being supplied to non-state groups because this creates a possibility of the operation of these kinds of weapons, which creates a danger of civil aggression around the world, he said. On the 16th of July 2014, a Ukraine military Sukhoi Su-25 close air support aircraft was shot down. So this is the third one which was being shot down. The Ukraine government officials expressed the Russian military of downing the aircraft with the air-to-air missile fired by the MH17. This is a jet in Russia, whilst a spokesman of Russia's defense military rejected these allegations as a burden. Also, the 17th of July now, Russia closed more than a dozen aircrafts of various attitudes. The 17th of July 2014, an unmarked press journalist saw a brick launcher, a BUA launcher in Citadel at the town of Kursk Outblast, approximately 16 kilometers, that's 10 miles southeast of the crash site. The reporter also saw 7 tanks at the filling station near the town. 7 rebel tanks near the filling station. Also on the 17th of July, an unconfirmed phone call between the two ministers again between the officer of main investigation disruption of Russian Federation and the deputy chief of Bureau from investigation also, and the ministers took place where they discussed where to unload and place the Beaker's missile system. So the aircraft departed from Amsterdam Airport Gate G03 at approximately 12:14 CST time. That is 10:14 Ukraine time. Flight 17 was due to arrive at Colombo International Airport 11 hours and 45 minutes later at 6 a.m. on the 18th of July. According to Malaysia Airlines, MH17 a flight plane requested to fly at 35,000 feet throughout the Ukraine airspace, but upon entering Ukraine airspace, MH17 has given intelligence it was only flying the air traffic control was flying at 32,000 feet. Malaysia Airlines released a statement saying it received navigation from Ukraine ATC that it had lost control with flight MH17 at 14:15 Greenwich Mean Time at 32 kilometers and 19 miles from the Kursk airport, approximately 50 meters, that's 31 miles from the Russian-Ukraine border. The plane crashed near the village of Horokov, just north of Kursk, and the city of eastern Ukraine's Outblast. As it was approaching the Russian border, the moment of which a fireball rose due to impact and commencement on a video clip. Now, Flight Trader 24 reported that Singapore Airlines Boeing 777-200ER, that is flight HQ351, and the Air India Boeing 7878 flight AL113 were each about 25 kilometers away from the Malaysian airliner when it just disappeared. Photographs from the site of the crash was scattered places of broken debris and engine parts, as well as bodies and passports. Some of the wreckage fell close to houses of Horror Cove. Dozens of bodies fell into cornfields, some into houses. On the evening on the 19th of July, the Life News .ru Postal released the following statement on the 19th of July 17th near the village of Horror Cove over the city of Doncaster. Region of AN/27 transport plane of Ukraine Air Force was taken down, said to Malaysia. According to them, the plane crashed somewhere near the Progress Mile away from residential areas, according to one of the missiles. And now at approximately 17:30 local time, an AN-26 flight flew over the city. It was hit by a rocket when there was an explosion and the plane went to the ground, leaving the brake smoke debris falling from the sky. ATAR/TASS and RAT Rebel was also reported to, and Turan has also been shot down by the Malaysia airport at around about 16:00 local time. US analysis of the launch of plane systems suggested the missile was fired from an area between Taurus and Khasrasmi. Now the people, we're going to get the reaction times from Malaysia now. The Malaysian Deputy Foreign Minister said that the foreign military would be working closely with Russian and Ukraine governments with regard to the incident. Prime Minister Spreaker later said on his statement that at this stage, however, Malaysia is unable to verify the cause of the tragedy, but we must and we will find out precisely what happened to this flight. No stone will be left unturned, but he also added it is treacherous that the plane was indeed shot down. The inside of the promotions just swiftly be brought to justice. The Malaysian government was detected to fly the country's national flag at half-mast from 18th of July until the 21st of July. Now the Netherlands Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte and the King voiced their shock at the crash. Minister of Foreign Affairs will join the Dutch investigation team sent to Ukraine. The Dutch government buildings flew a flag at half-mast on the 18th of July. Music was cancelled at festivals, was toned down during the last, the officially the day of the country's marches. Jesus, sorry. Russian President said responsibly for the crash says the country is those airspace the plane was in when it crashed, and that the disappear wouldn't happen if the military action in the southeast of Ukraine was not reliable. On the 19th of July, Russian Ministry of Defense announced 10 questions of the Ukraine government reported allegations earlier published to Russian media. Russian citizens brought flowers to the Dutch empress in Moscow. Some left notes in English: "We are very sorry for the terrible shame." Now the Ukraine government, or the Ukraine Prime Minister, or the President, vows support to the Dutch in promotion into the crash, which he called an act of terrorism. Now he offered condolences of air destruction into the telephone conversation with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. Ukraine citizens brought flowers to the Dutch and in support of that. Now the Eastern Union, or the European Union should I say, responsibilities or representatives. Joshua Bellio, and Harman Van Kussen released was a joint statement calling an incident of throughout investigation. The EU officials also said that Ukraine had first claimed on the plane's black boxes. Now, the Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott said the aircraft was flown down by a missile which seems to have been launched by Russian-backed rebels. Therefore, the Australian Foreign Affairs Minister said in an interview on an Israeli TV program that it was extraordinary that her Russian colleagues was refused to speak to the fatal drowning of the Malaysian Airlines plane. The Russian government was central of the Australian response, bounting that the Prime Minister's comments of indulgent and rude. Okay. That's rude. Germany's Chancellor determined a serious and intolerable injury there. South Africa's Minister of International Relations whatever that says, enjoined world leaders not to jump to cause of the incident. Now, the President called for independent investigation. The United Kingdom requested an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. US President Barack Obama said the US would help determine the cause in a press statement. The White House spokesman Josh Earnest called for an intimate meeting. The Vice President John President said the plane appeared to have been deliberately shut down. The vouched U.S. assistant for investigation into the crash. The U.S. ambassador of the United Nations, Samantha Power, stated that the flight was likely drowned by the surface-to-air missile, an SA-11 operated by the system located to eastern Ukraine. That the US could not rule out technical assistance by Russian personnel in the operation system, that Russia could end this war. Now, the United Nations Security Council had an emergency meeting on Ukraine's crisis. A British defense statement calling for a thoughtful and independent international investigation into the cause of the crash, stressing the need for all parties to gain intimate access by investigations to the crash site and determine the cause of the incident was discussed. Strong words from those now look. Oh shit. With the recoveries of the casualties on the 19th of July 2014, a spokesman of the National Security Defense Council of Ukraine told the press that the attempts removed 38 bodies from the crash site in order to retrieve from the bodies incesses rockets used to shoot the plane for destroy evidence. The Ukraine Foreign Minister said that the bodies found at the crash will be taken to for investigation. A city 270 kilometers to the north. 181 bodies has been found as of the 18th of July. Now, on the 19th of July, which was yesterday, I believe. Dutch Prime Minister commented that he was disgusted by the lack of respect shown to personal belongings and shocked about the lack of respect for the bodies of the casualties. It has been reported that bodies were being dragged around and thrown whilst the victims' possessions were looted. Today, on the 20th of July 2014, Ukraine emergency vehicles offended by armed specialists began loading the remains of the passengers of MH17 to rail cars for transportation and investigation. The remains of 100 people are still missing. Sad stuff. So Australia the number boarding passport and the dual nationality. So as a state of the nation of Australia, we're going to do an alphabetical order. There was 27 people on that plane. Belgium 4, Canada 1, Germany 4. There was no Hong Kongs there, but that was one nationality of Hong Kong as flight crew. There was one nationality of flight crew Australian, one nationality of flight crew Belgium. Indonesia, there was 12 people on board, none of them was a crew. Ireland, there was one island crew member. Israel's one national, there's one crew member there. Italy, one crew member. Malaysia, 43 people on board, none of them was dual nationalities. The Netherlands, 193 people there. New Zealand, 1 and 1 dual nationality. Philippines, 1 number of the boarding passports and none nationality. Romania, 1 for the dual nationality. South Africa was 1 dual nationality. United Kingdom, 10, United States 1 dual nationality, and Vietnam 3 that's a total of 298 people. All of them sadly died. We're going to go for a special report on the plane attack, but before we're going to get today's news on the Malaysia Airlines for you, as this is a special report, as you may have already found out. Now, all 283 passengers and 15 Malaysian crew died. Over 2,000 passengers were from the Netherlands. As you found out, in the Netherlands, there was 193 people on board that plane from the Netherlands. Authorities said there were 295 people on board. It says here 298. We're not having but not including the 3 infants. Oh, there you go. Oh, God. By the 19th of July, the airline had officially determined the nationalities of all 298 passengers and crew. The nationalities were noted in the table to the work which just but now to the nationality released by the airline were noted to the second column. We should run out for you there. Whilst the third column it was people who had citizenship in certain countries, but they officially assessed by another nationality due to dual citizenship. For staff from Malaysia Airlines, of course Singapore had applied to play this as well. Singapore Airlines has been given the go-ahead to fly above 38,000 feet on nose at the moment. So okay, let's get the special attack, a special report on the plane attack, and then we're going to get the news from today's events from it. So, Sky's Rachel Younger now presents the extended report on the fate of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 from skynews.co.uk. Some of whose my family is just
was not an innocent accident. It was the outcome of a trail of human evil.
Russian-controlled territory, Russian-backed rebels, quite likely a Russian-supplied weapon. Russia can't wash its hands of this.
They have to come back. Mr. Putin sends my children home.
Russia risks becoming a pariah state if it does not behave properly.
Three days have passed since flight MH17 came down. Unthinkably, in the summer heat, some of the bodies still lie where they fell. The wreckage of the plane is sprinkled over a lawless land, where pro-Russian separatists are holding the international community to ransom. They say they will only allow unhindered access to the crash site if Ukraine agrees to a ceasefire. It means no one's protecting the dignity of the dead or knows where those who have been found are being taken. For relatives already destroyed by grief, it's almost unbearable.
My son.
23 and 20 years old. They're lying there on the floor somewhere. I don't know where they are.
You can go to the
I want their funeral. I want to arrange their funeral. I can't. I don't know where they are. I don't know. I want them back. I want my children back. Look at those people. How beautiful.
Oh my God.
They have to come back.
Give the bodies back.
Mr. Putin sends my children home. Send them home.
Please.
Please.
I'm back you. Oh my God.
For the first 48 hours, there were only local volunteers doing their best to help. Although some who are rescuers. Now Ukraine's emergency workers have finally been allowed in. The body bags are piling up on the roadside as patience with the Russians wears ever thinner.
Later voor deze persconferentie, omdat ik net een zeer...
I just had an intense telephone conversation with the Russian president. I told him that time is running out for him to show the world that he is serious about his offer to help. Now he has to take responsibility towards the rebels and show the Netherlands and the world that he will do what is expected of him, to use his influence.
Because no one seems to know where the plane's crucial black boxes are. Ukrainian security services have released another recording. We can't verify it, but it's claimed this is an intercepted phone conversation between the separatists.
Леша, у кого ящики черные?
У нас нету.
У кого, Леша?
Сейчас давай я узнаю, постараюсь узнать.
Очень оперативно узнай, срочно. Москва интересуется по поводу того, где ящики. Доложи мне, пожалуйста, Леш, надо оперативно узнать. Кто кроме вас есть? Люди Стрелкова есть?
Я не знаю, приехали сейчас ОБСЕ.
Значит, Леша, судьба черных ящиков интересует в первую очередь. Они должны оказаться под нашим контролем. Выполни, пожалуйста, задачу. Хорошо?
Хорошо.
Ukraine now openly accusing the separatists of destroying vital evidence.
What we need now is clear international pressure, also on Russia, because Russia has influence on these terrorists to provide clear and unhindered access to the place of crash and to allow the international investigation team to be there.
UK also convinced that these men are answering to Moscow.
We are clear that the Russians have significant influence over the separatists in eastern Ukraine, that they have been supplying them with weapons and material, and that in some cases separatists are reporting directly to handlers in Russia. And I'm afraid there is evidence that some of the material which could have forensic value is being moved or removed from the site. This is an interference with what is potentially an important crime scene. It is not acceptable, and we have to be very clear with the Russians that the entire international community is demanding that they behave in accordance with proper international norms.
Writing in the Sunday Times, Prime Minister David Cameron said, "If President Putin does not change his approach to the Ukraine, then Europe and the West must fundamentally change our approach to Russia. This is not about military action plainly, but it is time to make our power, influences and resources count." In Kiev, the flag outside the Dutch embassy remains at half-mast. Over half of the dead come from the Netherlands, so Ukrainians are bringing flowers here, but anger too. The lives claimed on their soil were lived in many continents, and so they remember the dead today in the Netherlands, and on the other side of the globe in Australia, where 36 are being mourned.
MH17 was not an innocent accident. It was the outcome of a trail of human evil.
All the time, the voices criticising the Russian president are becoming louder and less diplomatic. The Prime Minister here has little doubt who was responsible.
Russian-controlled territory, Russian-backed rebels, quite likely a Russian-supplied weapon. Russia can't wash its hands of this.
Yet aside from a brief television appearance on Friday, Vladimir Putin has remained uncharacteristically silent. The UN Security Council will again discuss what's happened, but the Russian veto will prevent a critical resolution being passed.
Just to sit there and say it was the Ukrainians, Kiev was responsible for this is all stemmed from the West's action, is completely implausible and non-credible. And their reputation will suffer, their trade will suffer, their economy will suffer.
But one former British cabinet minister says the West must bear some responsibility for the deteriorating relations with Russia.
I think it was provocative of the West to take NATO right up to the Russian borders. That's made them paranoid. What do we want in the long term? If we squeeze the Russian economy, provoke more and more military spending, that will hurt the EU economy. We haven't got a long-term plan.
It is too late for the Malaysia Airlines plane and its entirely innocent passengers caught up in a war that had nothing to do with them, but that has been allowed to escalate with devastating consequences for other nations. 10 Britons are now confirmed to have been among the dead, including Leeds University student Richard Main from Leicestershire. A few weeks before he flew, Richard posted this video to YouTube.
Richard, yeah, how's it going? Yeah, pretty nervous. I just want to say thank you to all those people who helped support me with the expedition taking place, and I'm going to finish it off with a bungee jump now.
Newcastle United fans John Order and Liam Sweeney were also on MH17, travelling to New Zealand to see their team play in a pre-season tour.
Two happy kids going to do what they wanted to do, live life, do something after not everybody does, goes to New Zealand every other day, and then he was coming back to go to Germany next week. So unfortunately, he's gone.
Canadian Alexandra Angle replied to a text message from her brother Andre moments before the flight took off.
I said, "Please be safe, kiddo, I love you." That was it. pretty sure he saw it because I sent it like 5 minutes after, but I hope he saw it. I just want him to come home.
But the repatriation process hasn't even begun. Dozens of bodies have now been put into refrigerated train cars, but rail workers say they don't know where they'll be taken. 9 miles away, the wreckage of flight MH17 remains unsecured and unexamined for clues that might describe its final moments in the air. The plane and those on board still victims of the chaos and confusion of a war that wasn't theirs.
And we're going to give you real life updates now on today's events for flight MH17 with the news in just a couple of seconds. So here we go then. Live now, it is 10 past 10 if there's no broadcast, and let's have a look at all today's events.
Intense fighting in Gaza since Israel launched its offensive has killed nearly 90 Palestinians today and 13 Israeli soldiers. The Palestinian leadership accused Israel of massacring civilians. 60 died in one district today. And in the past hour, there are reports that an Israeli soldier has been captured by Hamas fighters. Also on tonight's programme, footage of the first pro-Russian separatists at the scene of the downed Malaysian airliner in Ukraine moments after it came down.
The champion.
He has done it. Rory McIlroy wins the 143rd Open Golf at Hoylake. And the Hollywood actor James Garner dies at the age of 86.
So guys, this is all today's news with a little bit about the Garner, or the incident as it appears. We'll be back at 35 minutes past 10. We've got your BBC Weekend News and plus BBC London News as well. Let's go to that with you now then. Freedom, shall we? Here on Ash Radio, it's Newsbeat.
Good evening. Gaza has come under the most intense shelling since the launch of Israel's military offensive nearly 2 weeks ago. Gaza's health ministry says at least 87 people were killed today. Most of them were from one area. Israel says that 13 of its soldiers were killed in the latest fighting. And in the past hour, there are reports that Hamas forces have captured an Israeli soldier. In a moment, we'll hear from our World Affairs editor, John Simpson, who's in Israel. First, our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, reports from the Shejia district of Gaza City.
Another deadly day in Gaza. The worst in this war. Israeli forces shelled Shejia all through the night. This morning, they were pulling bodies from the rubble. And the bombardment goes on. Those who survived escape when they can, however they can. Still under fire. Thousands are on the run. Our children were sleeping peacefully when they started shooting, this mother tells me. There were 19 people in the house. Why is this happening? Israel says this area is a stronghold of Hamas. We saw militants on these streets keeping watch. There are more casualties deep inside. It's still too dangerous for medics to go in. But by early afternoon, a 2-hour truce is agreed. Within minutes, it's broken. They retreat in the crossfire. Israeli soldiers have met fierce resistance here. Then the medics try again. They know there are bodies beneath this rubble. And suddenly, a woman's hand reaches out. She's alive. In wars like this, survival can sometimes be a game of chance. When 75-year-old Galia fled with her daughter, she didn't want to take any chances. An embroidered tablecloth is her defense.
And the injured are now arriving. They keep arriving at this main hospital in Gaza. They've been taking in casualties here every day since the operation started, but never have they taken in so many casualties on a single day. And this day isn't over yet, nor is the operation.
Inside, 4 little girls wait with their grandmother. For news of their mother, 28-year-old Isra. Their father brings it. She's dead. For a moment, they lose their father too. Lise Doucette, BBC News, Gaza.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation after the deaths of 13 soldiers in Gaza. He said the offensive would continue until peace returned to Israeli citizens. Our World Affairs editor John Simpson reports.
Israel's losses are mounting sharply. Nothing remotely like the losses on the Palestinian side, but deeply disturbing for Israelis all the same. Amotz Grinberg, a 45-year-old reservist, was killed yesterday, and his funeral took place today. Israel isn't used to losing soldiers on such a scale, and pictures like these are starting to have a powerful effect on public opinion. And they demonstrate that grief isn't something that's limited to one side. Today, on the border with Gaza, the fighting reached a new intensity. The Israeli military leadership is powerfully aware how important it is to keep civilian casualties low, but with the overwhelming firepower at their disposal and the techniques they have for protecting themselves against attack, the results aren't surprising. It's a deeply unpleasant feeling to stand and watch a city full of people being attacked like this. The man who ordered today's escalation spoke to the BBC. Benjamin Netanyahu says the Sejair part of Gaza was where the Hamas rockets were stored and fired from.
We asked the population, leave. We asked them again and again. We call them up, we text them messages, we give leaflets. We ask them to leave. Hamas says, and some of them do leave. Hamas says, don't leave. We forbid you to leave. So Hamas is using these people, these civilians, as a human shield.
This afternoon, the two sides agreed a brief lull so the injured could be brought out.
You can hear artillery shots going off all the time, and there's plenty of movement on the military side. But as the reports start to spread of the new Israeli army losses, so it's clear we're starting to enter a new phase in this crisis.
Israel says the upsurge in fighting is because they're searching for a particular tunnel network inside Gaza. But they needed to keep the casualties down, and that hasn't happened. John Simpson, BBC News on the Gaza border.
Well, for more on news that Hamas says it has captured an Israeli soldier, let's talk to Lise Doucette in Gaza City. Lise, what's the latest you hear?
Well, the news came about 2 hours ago on the television network that's run by Hamas's military wing, the Izzedim al-Qassam Brigades. and they announced that they had captured an Israeli soldier during the operations that we've been reporting on, operations by Israeli special forces to the east of Gaza City, and they said he was taken during clashes. Now, we've asked the Israeli military for their response to these reports, and they still say that they're looking into them. But this is Israel's worst fear when it comes to its soldiers. This is a country where everyone, every man, every woman serves in the Israeli Defense Forces. And Israelis will remember the long political drama when Gilad Shalit was also captured by Hamas in 2006, and it took 5 long years. And finally, the exchange of 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in order to free Gilad Shalit. Israel doesn't want to go through that again, so we'll have to wait to see whether that's confirmed. But as soon as the news was announced here, we could hear celebration erupted on the streets.
These two set in Gaza, thank you very much. The bodies of nearly 200 victims of the Malaysian Airlines flight which crashed in Ukraine have been put on refrigerated rail carriages to be taken to an unknown destination. Today, the BBC was shown pictures filmed by pro-Russian rebels at the scene immediately after the plane came down. Our special correspondent Fergal Keane sent this report from Grabova.
The volunteers from local villages were searching for human remains and for documents. But this is work for professional investigators, not the untrained or the casual. Nearby, the emergency services were still removing bodies. 197 passengers of flight MH17 have now been recovered. There was a calmer atmosphere. European observers were given full access to the site after days of obstruction. This may well be down to international pressure on the rebels' leaders.
Now that the OSCE have arrived again today, there is some attempt to establish a proper cordon to allow them to go around and inspect the site and see what remains of the crash. We're being moved back now, as you can see, as the cordon is pushed further out by the militia. Important to remember that they still are the power here.
It is the rebels who now hold this, one of 2 flight data recorders recovered 2 days ago. They've promised international investigators will have access whenever they arrive. But today we obtained from local rebels extraordinary footage of how they acted shortly after the crash, tipping out people's belongings. But also what they said. It gives a picture of surprise. They're foreigners, a voice says. Who allowed them to fly over here? The footage reveals an already determined search for vital evidence. I think this is the black box, a voice says. Let's have a look at it. He's wrong. The search goes on. Then the rebel says, we seem to have found one black box already. We need to find the other. And another order. Collect all the memory sticks. Information is the most important thing. Why did these militia give us their tape? Possibly because they believe their unit hasn't done anything wrong. I spoke to the man who filmed and gave orders.
The allegation is that you and your men took away people's belongings and bodies.
We looked at their belongings because we were searching for documents. Then we put them in a truck and took them away for sorting.
The tape offers an insight into how one group of rebels behaved in the aftermath of the crash, but it doesn't offer any proof about who brought down the plane. Only an independent international investigation has any hope of conclusively establishing that. 3 days after the crash, there's still no sign of that probe even beginning. Fergal Keane, BBC News, Eastern Ukraine.
For friends and relatives of the victims, not knowing when the bodies of their loved ones will be returned is agonising. In the Dutch town of Hilversum, a service today remembered 3 families, including that of the British lawyer John Allen, who died in the plane crash. From there, Matthew Price reports.
Here in Hilversum, they lost 3 entire families.
Charles Smallenburg, Therese Smallenburg-Brouwer,
Carlijn Smollenburg.
Charles Smollenburg, a football club volunteer, his son a promising young player, and his wife, a woman who Bituen Hidalgo called a friend. She came to mourn after she read the passenger list and found Teresa's name there.
I know how much she loved her kids. The whole family is dead. And she was my former boss. And, I learned a lot from her, which is why I'm here.
In all, 13 people from this town died. So far, grief has been the overwhelming reaction. But now, says the Deputy Mayor, who has spent time with all the families, that's changing.
You see these pictures every once in a while on television, and it's always in some faraway place, but now it's our children and our teachers who are lying there, and people are, family members who are fearing that the wedding bands and the gold watch that they inherited from their grandparents are being robbed there by the militia, and that's, I think, anger as much as fear and grief.
Everyone here is shattered. At the local primary school, a teacher is mourned, and in words struggled over by a child just learning to write, a message so simple it is devastating. Lovely Sandra, it is a shame you're dead. Matthew Price, BBC News, Hilversum.
David Cameron spoke to Russia's President Putin this evening, urging him to ensure pro-Moscow separatists allow access to the crash site. Well, our political correspondent Gary O'Donoghue is in Downing Street for us now. Gary, what do we know about this conversation?
Well, Downing Street have been pretty frustrated, Nick, because they've waited 3 days to speak to President Putin, and given that 10 British people died on that flight, they think that's pretty unacceptable. The men spoke for about half an hour. I think in what you could call an understatement, the tone was described as frank. David Cameron told the Russian leader that it was totally indefensible, the shooting down of flight MH17, and he demanded further access to the site for what he said were proper funerals for the victims. He also threatened the Russians. He said he'd be pressing for further sanctions at an EU level. There are already bans, we know, on travel to and from the EU and asset freezes. He wants people to go further, possibly banning companies that do business with Russia, even defence contracts particularly. We've already looked at export licences. The French have been a bit slow on this, and they want that to change. David Cameron will update MPs tomorrow in a common statement, but the real crunch time will come on Tuesday, when foreign ministers gather in Brussels, and we will see, Nick, at that point whether there's a real appetite for tough action against Russia.
Gary O'Donoghue, thank you. Rory McIlroy has won his third major golf title after a thrilling final day's play at the Open Championship. The Northern Irishman held off the challenge of Sergio Garcia and Ricky Fowler to win by 2 shots. Catherine Downs was at Hoylake to see McIlroy lift the claret jug for the first time.
The prize for winning what was a battle to the end, nerve and skill tested, golf at the Open as it should be, though Rory McIlroy may have hoped for an easier day. He started 6 shots clear of the field and began with a birdie. But his rivals were spoiling for a fight. Spain's Sergio Garcia on the attack and closing the gap.
There's nothing wrong with that, and Garcia done it.
While Ricky Fowler conjured himself into contention. The lead dwindled to 3, then 2. They were catching up. He'd watched his lead crumble at Augusta in 2011. At Hoylake, a determined McIlroy clung on. In the end, just a tap was all it took.
Save of the moment. Tap it in. The champion.
It was the first major my mum was at that I won, so to see her off the back of the 18th, and she was crying her eyes out, and I was trying to hold back the tears. I probably shed a few. It is emotional. It's been a sort of hard 18 months, but having this thing in my possession has made it all worth it.
So Rory McIlroy is the Open champion, part now of an elite trio with Tiger Woods and the great Jack Nicklaus to win 3 majors by the age of 25. All that's missing for him now is the elusive Masters green jacket. Catherine Downs, BBC News at Hoylake.
Cricket, England are in danger of defeat in the second test against India, heaping further pressure on captain Alistair Cook. His poor form with the bat continued as he was dismissed for 22. England were 105 for 4 at the close, chasing 319 for victory. Lewis Hamilton had Formula One fans on the edge of their seats today as he battled from 20th on the grid to finish the German Grand Prix in 3rd place. Hamilton spent all 67 laps in attack mode as he went through the field to claim a place on the podium. His Mercedes His teammate and title rival Nico Rosberg took the checkered flag, extending his lead over Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship to 14 points. The Hollywood actor James Garner, perhaps best known for his roles in the Rockford Files and Maverick, has died at the age of 86. Richard Lister looks back at his career.
The Rockford Files was one of those 70s TV series everyone seemed to like. James Garner played the ex-con turned private eye with the roguish charm which defined his career for more than 50 years.
Hey, wait a minute.
It ran for 6 seasons, ending only because Garner was getting injured on set so often.
Good afternoon, Mr. Maverick.
This, though, was the TV role that first made him famous. As Brett Maverick, Garner said he was simply playing himself. It gave him a Golden Globe and a screen persona he stuck with. He was one of the first Hollywood stars to cross easily between television and film. Wow! Starring with Steve McQueen, The Great Escape opened the door to more movie roles.
Right square on your head, low down on your forehead. Now that means get off the sidewalk and clear a path, because you're cocked and ready to fire.
He was Oscar nominated for Murphy's Romance, one of more than 70 films he starred in. James Garner continued acting well into his 70s, but his movies never really eclipsed his television success, and for many he'll always be remembered simply, but affectionately, as Jim Rockford.
James Garner, who's died at the age of 86. That's it. Now on BBC One, it's time for the news where you are. From me, for now, good night.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Assad Ahmed. Thousands of people have been celebrating the legacy of the 2012 London Olympics by running past some of the Games' most famous venues. The second anniversary run took in the ArcelorMittal Tower and the Aquatic Centre. Also keeping the Olympic spirit alive was Sir Chris Hoy. Here's Sonia Jessup.
And they were off. 7,000 runners racing through the Olympic Park. Olympian Sir Chris Hoy on hand with the starting horn and high fives.
The London Olympics was such a fantastic occasion that it seemed like the ideal and sensible thing to do was to bring it to the people of London and the people particularly of Newham as well.
And today was about showing off Newham's star attractions. Runners racing 5 miles around the recently reopened 2012 venues. But there's also hope that bringing back the Olympic buzz will inspire the borough to become more healthy.
It's using the inspiration from the Games, it's using that kind of spark and just trying to encourage people to make exercise part of their daily routine.
And to try to encourage more local runners, 1,000 of them were allowed to race for free.
You see more and more people running in the morning, you see people out on bikes a lot more. Been brought up in Newham my whole life, so to see kind of the Olympics come here and then still carry on is fantastic.
For younger athletes, there was the family fun run of 1.5 miles.
I'm very fast, but I keep tripping over. I want to see how fast
The heat did make it hard work, but for many, treading the same ground as Olympic athletes kept them going.
Lovely, yeah. It brought tears to my eyes when I started. When I hear Chariots of Fire, that's it, I'm going.
It brings back the kind of, a bit of the butterflies, the nerves, the excitement.
Excitement the organisers hope Londoners will hold on to. Next year's finish line, they've promised, will be in the stadium itself. Sonia Jessup, BBC London News.
Flash flooding today has caused havoc in some areas of the southeast. Canvey Island in Essex was one of the worst hit areas. Well, emergency services say they received hundreds of calls following thunder, lightning and heavy downpours this afternoon. Southend Hospital had to close its A&E department after it became flooded, and train lines into London from Southend were also blocked after lightning. Stories of evictions, estate agents and Londoners languishing on council housing waiting lists. Well, some of the dramatic pitfalls of the capital's property market have been turned into a play, and it's all based on real-life experiences, as Gareth Furby has been finding out.
Just off the Walworth Road, they're rehearsing a new play with an unusual script.
Authentic way.
Do you think it will achieve anything?
I really don't know. I think it depends on whether we get heard.
That was Harriet Cox ending that report by Gareth Furby. Well, let me just tell you that the issue of housing and the critical shortage of it in London is something we're looking at all this week. We've asked 4 experts to give their own solutions to rising house prices and increasing demand. And some of the views you may find controversial. Well, the series called Home Truths starts tomorrow, when we'll be looking at the idea of building on greenbelt land. But now let's take a look at the weather forecast with Sarah.
Good evening. It has been a stormy day today. We've had torrential rain, thunderstorms, flash flooding. The radar picture shows where we've had torrential showers, with the lightning strikes too across parts of Essex and mainly to the north of London. The showers have been fading over the past hour or two, and overnight tonight the showers continue to die away a bit, but still feeling quite warm and muggy too. Monday morning could dawn a little bit misty and grey, but come the afternoon, the sun will tend to break through the clouds. So some sunny spells, isolated showers during the afternoon, and temperatures still on the warm side at 26 degrees. But for the rest of the week, things will warm up yet again, reaching highs of around 28, a chance of 1 or 2 showers, particularly later in the week. Good night from me.
And that's it for tonight. Don't forget our regular news, travel and weather updates begin at 6:30 tomorrow morning. Have a very good night. Bye-bye.
Good evening. For those hit by storms this week, or those on holiday through the week ahead, the good news is we switch the storms for sunshine through much of this week. High pressure building, showers few and far between, so much of the time it will be dry. The warmth perhaps benefiting the holidaymakers rather than the workers. And it will be quite a warm night once again, 14 to 17 through the night. The storms we've seen in eastern England continue to fade away. A few heavy showers, maybe the thunderstorm across Orkney and Shetland still possible, but most going to Monday on a dry and, as I said, fairly warm note. Could be quite misty and grey in places too to begin Monday morning, especially so East Anglia, the southeast. But inland, away from the eastern coast, we should see that cloud thin and break. Some good sunny spells developing. Stays grey though across Orkney and Shetland, further outbreaks of rain. A few showers spreading into the western Northern Ireland later on. And where we saw the storms today, there will be a few showers around during Monday afternoon. Still the chance of the odd heavy one, but nowhere near as many or as potent as the storms of today. Many will stay dry, pretty warm and humid towards that southeast corner. The breeze may help to make things feel a bit more pleasant, especially so around some of these western coasts. A pleasant 18-19 degrees here, up to the low mid-20s further inland. Should see the low 20s across parts of Scotland too. Sunny spells, isolated showers, although grey towards the northeast. Showers spreading across Northern Ireland later, but many will still stay dry with some brightness. The evening sees a few showers continue across eastern England, but through the night and into Tuesday they fade away. High pressure builds, not much in the way of isobars on the charts, so light winds will lead to mist and fog, particularly to eastern coast, but inland it's looking warm and it's looking sunny.
Okay, so now we're doing official reports on the Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 and on arrivals as bodies has been taken on a refrigered train. Let's take a report of that. Or let's have a report of that.
So many nations for the discovery that could help answer the questions which have preoccupied so many in so many nations for days. What brought down flight MH17? This black box could hold the clues. The uniform suggests it was found by a Ukrainian emergency worker, but separatists control this territory, and they claim to have the plane's data recorders.
We
can reveal that we discovered some technical details of those devices, which to our mind might just be the so-called black boxes. So those objects are in Donetsk under my supervision. We're waiting for the ICAO representatives to whom we are ready to hand in those objects.
He's in control too of the vast site where the plane came down. Bodies are still being found, but close to 200 are believed to have been removed from the crash site by the separatists. Some, we don't know how many, ended up on board this refrigerated train in the nearby village of Torres. Heavily armed rebels stand guard as OSCE observers are allowed a brief inspection. But after they leave, the train remains. The destination of the carriage is unknown, even to the staff on board. This man tells us, yes, we have bodies, but I don't know where we're taking them. We don't know where we're going or when. It's believed they were taken to Donetsk. Despite international pressure, the separatists are still calling the shots here, again dictating what the international monitors could do. They were allowed back onto the site, but there were still questions about whether the rebels would guarantee their safety and that of international investigators yet to penetrate the wreckage looking for clues. Few scenes speak of the utter failure of the investigation so far than this one. This is the cockpit of the plane, a structure you would have expected to be covered and protected from the start and then taken away. But days on, it lies here utterly exposed for absolutely anyone to pore over. That all compounds the fear that evidence will be lost or so degraded answers will never come. Much hope now lies with the black box. The question is, who has it?
So that was one report on the rebels going unloading things. And now we've got a video from a Malaysian Airlines caregiver. Describes how her role in helping the relatives of those on board of MH17 and reveals she knew colleagues on the drowned Boeing 777-200. We'll also have a look at Sky's Colin Braze's report. He's at the site, of course, and the black box removed from the crash site and the rebels.
This, where we are there to actually give them a shoulder to cry on, to listen to them, to make sure that their accommodation is well taken care of, and transport, if let's say they need any transport, we'll try our best to arrange it for them, and to at least have the minimum necessity being taken care of, because in a situation like this, when people are grieving, they might have, they might not take care of themselves properly.
So not eat properly or?
Not eat properly, so yeah, we are there for them to make sure they are okay, and then to listen to them and to be there for them, yeah. This morning, I actually talked to a guy that has 3 of his relatives on board, and one of them is a 9-year-old boy, a little boy, and yeah, he's been showing me pictures, and he have been telling me that they have been going on holiday. They went for a holiday recently here in Netherlands. Actually, no, they are not angry, but they are grieving. They are grieving. I mean, people react differently. The person that I talked to today, he's really calm, but we can see through him that there's emotion going through. Yeah, I can't 100% say that he's not angry, because everyone is going through this grief process, and people behave and react differently. But yeah, everyone, yeah, is grieving. I was involved in 370. I was one of the Go team member to be in Beijing to assist. It was difficult because everyone is searching for an answer. Everyone's searching for an answer. However, although there's a different circumstances, but everyone is grieving. So yeah, so both situations are about the same, I would say. I mean, people are.
Now, really quickly, we're going to get Sky's Colin Fraser. who is at the MH17 site. Sky's Colin Brazier says those searching for bodies at the MH17 crash site in eastern Ukraine face a colossal task. We're going to get him now. Comments 07718 242 for the last sort of half hour or 15 minutes now. So let's get Sky's Colin Fraser, who is at the MH17 crash site.
Talking to one of the miners who've been helping the search for bodies and debris here. He says the search area now around Grubovo and beyond has been expanded to 50 square kilometres. It's a colossal task facing a small band of volunteers for the most part, who are operating without really very much by the way of central direction. This is a separatist area controlled by separatists. None of the usual organs of state and institutions apply here. It's pretty lawless, put simply. Up on the road there, beyond one of the areas which has been charred by debris, burned debris, bits of fuselage and other items from that stricken Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. You can see some of the OSCE observers who've returned here about 10 minutes ago. They arrived 3 hours ago, gave an impromptu press conference at which one of their number said that something approaching 200 bodies have now been removed from the scene. That still leaves approximately 100 left over the search area. Those OSCE monitors are there. They're flanked by militia, by irregular soldiers wearing khaki, brandishing AK-47s. And you can't necessarily see, actually you can see from this position, if we can just move back to where a piece of fuselage from the rear of the aircraft lies stricken by the roadside. On this side of the roadside you can, I think, perhaps see some white and red tape. Just beneath that white and red tape you can see 8 body bags that have been lying there in the baking sunshine. It's times in the 80s here, and those body bags have been there for about 4 hours or so. They were removed by a group of 5 or 6 men with pickaxes and crowbars who managed to prise their bodies from beneath a large chunk of wreckage. Many other body parts around here. Just over the crest of the hill there's another one of these scorched earth areas, and there scenes which were simply too horrific certainly to film and are a struggle in a sense to describe. The air thick with acrid aviation fuel fumes and certainly the stench of rotting flesh as well. Body parts strewed over a huge area, and what's needed here, certainly in the minds of many people who are looking for some comfort right now in the depths of despair, is an efficient process that will allow for the recovery with dignity of those bodies that lie over this massive search area.
Stuff. Let me see your comments. 0778 242 now footage has emerged of what is believed to be the aircraft's 2 flight recorders being carried away from the crash site.
Rescuers there appear to be carrying, now much been made about the whereabouts of the black box recorders, the flight recorders carried on all civilian aircraft. They are of course orange in colour, and you can quite clearly see a man there carrying one of said orange boxes away. These are the latest pictures, and we had the Foreign Secretary on the programme a little bit earlier saying it is essential that those are received by the relevant authorities.
And last but not least, Ukraine security services released audio recordings of what they claimed the rebels talking about trying to hide the black box at Moscow's request. Sky News is unable to identify who this is. So we're going to get this, we're going to have a look at the papers for tomorrow, for our papers, and we're going to see if we can find any more evidence for the Moscow thing, but try to hide the black boxes. Let's have a look at that footage, shall we? By Squads, your views, please, is really important.
Это как бы не моя просьба. Очень наших товарищей там свысока очень интересует судьба черных ящиков.
So here I say, I have a request for you. It is not my request, and fans from high above are very insistent in the fate of the black boxes. I mean people from Moscow. Please request the Ministry of Emergency that must not come into somebody else's hands.
Взаимодействие с МЧСом. Все, что будете находить, чтобы не попадало, никуда не чистите. Все, что найдете, забирайте, пожалуйста.
Try to take everything that you find so that it doesn't get into somebody else's hands. All these people that are coming.
Все, что будете находить, чтобы не попадало, никуда не чистите. Все, что найдете,
all the people that are coming, OSCE and on and so on.
Хорошо?
I've got it, okay. Listen, they should look at some. Where's the point? At least listen to some honest. Listen, they should look like some orange small brats.
Как оранжевые какие-то бочонки, да? Я знаю, Леша, тебе виднее. Понятно, но... Все, что будете находить, чтобы не попадало, никуда не чистите. Все, что найдете, забирайте, пожалуйста, чтобы посторонним это в руки не попало. Тем, кто там приезжает, об России и прочее.
Как
оранжевые какие-то бочонки, да? Я знаю.
But how I know?
Леша, тебе виднее.
I know better. Okay, we found something. This is just a box. Satellite navigation blog. It is written on it.
Какой-то нашли, но это просто коробка, блок спутниковой навигации, на нем написано. Ну, блядь, в любом случае.
Hide away, who knows how they are disgusted. Okay, I got it. Okay, so the Russia faces, so goes over MH17 crash. Now the Russia faces situations over MH17. We'll get that. We'll also get the Rolls Eyes on you from Russia. Mr. President says children home, and all countries must take part. So let's get the Russia faces situations over MH17.
Memorial services around the world and the victims of this outrage are quietly remembered. But the voices criticising the Russian president are becoming louder and less diplomatic. In Australia, where 36 citizens and residents were mourned, the Prime Minister had little doubt who was responsible.
Russian-controlled territory, Russian-backed rebels, quite likely a Russian-supplied weapon. Russia can't wash its hands of this.
Vladimir Putin initially blamed the Ukrainian government, but has said nothing for the past 2 days. Meanwhile, Western governments gather evidence which points to a very different conclusion.
We know to a certainty that we saw the launch from this area of what we deem to be an SA-11 because of the altitude, 33,000 feet, and because of the trajectory. We have the trajectory recorded. We know that it occurred at the very moment that this aircraft disappeared from the radar screen.
David Cameron has spoken to the French President and the German Chancellor and has urged EU leaders to become more aggressive in demanding further sanctions targeting Moscow. Writing in the Sunday Times, he said, "This is a direct result of Russia destabilizing a sovereign state, violating its territorial integrity, backing thuggish militias, and training and arming them." In response, he said, "This is not about military action plainly, but it is time to make our power, influence and resources count. Our economies are strong and growing in strength, and yet we sometimes behave as if we need Russia more than Russia needs us."
We now need to use the sense of outrage that is clear to get a further round of sanctions tightening against Russia, with further steps as well if the Russians do not comply with the requirements that the whole international community now places upon them.
The UN Security Council will again discuss what has happened, but the Russian veto will prevent a critical resolution being passed.
Just to sit there and say it was the Ukrainians, Kiev was responsible for this is all stemmed from the West's action, is completely implausible and non-credible. And their reputation will suffer, their trade will suffer, their economy will suffer.
Ukrainian diplomats have their own thoughts on how the EU should punish Russia.
Should cover not just certain individuals prevented from entering the European Union and certain banking accounts, but the sanctions against the sectors of the Russian economy. The critical for Russia sectors of economy, which is energy, resources, trade.
EU foreign ministers will meet on Tuesday in Brussels to discuss a response to what happened to the Malaysia Airlines plane and its entirely innocent passengers. Men, women and children caught up in a conflict that was allowed to escalate with devastating repercussions for other nations.
Well, okay, so now we quickly have David Hammond was ruled via putting the world's eyes on Russia to make sure she delivers on her forces on allegations to the victims dead.
This is not about Russia and the West. It's about the entire international community demanding that the proper access to this site is made available, that the victims' bodies are properly recovered, and that the evidence is secured. Russia has a key role to play in that through its influence on the separatists, and the world's eyes will be on Russia to see that she delivers on her obligations over the next few hours.
And a mother left distracted by the MH17 plane crash has appealed to Russian president to send my children home because they spoke as many left flowers at Amsterdam's Amsterdam's crematorium for 40. First of all, I can't see the rest, so we're just going to get straight to the point.
My son,
23 and 20 years old. They're lying there on the floor somewhere. I don't know where they are.
you can go to them.
I want a funeral. I want to arrange a funeral. I can't. I don't know where they are. I don't know. I want them back. I want my children back. Look at those people. How beautiful.
Oh my God.
They have to come back.
Give the bodies back.
Mr. Putin, send my children home. Send them home.
Please.
Please.
I'm back here. Oh my
God. Ukraine PM industry says all countries must take part in the investigation into Russian act of violence, the downing of Flight MH17. He also says that we must all take part. In this escapes Ukraine PM now asking the world leaders of each country to take part to find the investigation.
The Ukrainian government, let me express my deep condolences to your people and to your country.
Thank you.
This is a despicable act of violence, and you know that we launched an investigation, and we ask all respective governments to participate in this international investigation. We want to be as open as possible. Ukraine is to lead this process, but together with the international community.
Okay, that's all we've got time for. Let's quickly recap on anything now. Just quickly have a look. Today's tomorrow's front page papers for the 21st of July. And the retailer says parties are made to pay for flight MH17. whilst the Daily Telegraph says MH17 dead held as bone chips near families. The Guardian bodies pulled on dragged onto a train as faces for MH17 crash site. The Daily Mail says PM will freeze Russians billions. The Daily Telegraph says how to boost your protection. New rules will help 18 million people. And the Star says pushes trains of death, scratch bodies held to Russia. You can have a look at tomorrow's papers with our press review at 11:30 on skynews.com as the same as every night. Apart from that, this report was on the Malaysia Airlines, MH17 and on all the other today's news in special newsbeat bulletin. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to look at all of the tomorrow's papers. Thank everybody for listening and whatever. Appreciate it. And ta-ra.